What's going on, guys? Pegasus and the Wise Guys. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure you sub, make sure you hit the bell. Guys, we're doing meta call deck profiles where the decks aren't quite shit tier rogue decks, but they're also not meta decks. They're decks that are right on the cusp of being competitive, or they're really, really good matchups against some of the top decks. With that being said, let's jump into the video, shall we? Today we're talking about Infernoids. Let's go. Alrighty, guys, so just gonna jump straight into the deck profile. I think I'm pretty close to max rarity. Y'all can see the rarity. Looks good, looks good, looks good. But not too much to talk about. We're just gonna jump straight into it. Shout out to the Wise Guys, Al. Beautiful as always. Anuntu is the big one. Deviati is the second biggest one. This one is Dark Hole on summon, and it is a negation of a spell or trap and banishes on the field effect. Its on summon effect of Deviati, Heavy Storm. Its on field effect is to negate and banish a monster effect. So really, really powerful. They both take three of them things. You got to banish 3 Infernoids, and then after that, you are in good shape because they're usually going to make a huge impact on the game. But they cost a lot. 3 Infernoids is a lot when you're only playing 14, and that's the number that I'm playing. As for these, most of these that are in the second tier, I guess, what you want to say. A Tondale is the BLS double attacker. Seitzmas is the attack, and at the end of the battle phase, banish something. So even if you're running into something in defense, non-target and banishing is really, really powerful, especially in today's game. And it actually is how you handle stuff like Dragoon, which, yes, it doesn't target, so therefore it can make an impact on Dragoon if they've already used their negation, or if you hit them with the droplets. That's usually what's happened. Sajet is banish on attack. It banishes a card out of their extra deck, the opponent's choice, which I don't really like. But, you know, it is what it is. Everybody pretty much knows Sajet is really just filler because you have to play it because of the trap card, which we'll get to it when we get to it. And then as far as the smaller ones, Patrulia pops a spell or trap. It's the MST of the deck. Harmadic pops a monster. Pretty self-explanatory. And then Entre is a compulse for cards that are face up on the field. And then obviously you got 3 of the man, the MVP of the deck, because you have to play it and you have to have it. Infernoid Decatron. Decatron copies all of them. So if you've never seen this deck before, you should have seen it by now. It's just been out for 5-6 years. One of my favorite decks ever. Decatron copies all of their on-field effects. So don't ever let somebody cheat you with being able to summon more than level 8. The problem with the Infernoid monsters themselves is they are level locked. If you don't know what I mean, level locked means you cannot summon anything once it's 9 or more. So you can summon a level 8, like let's say a Tondale, and yes, you can summon a monster after that. However, you're level locked on being unable to have more than 9 stars on the board, basically. More than 8. So, you know, the 9 or more than that, you can't have it on the field. So that's why cards like Nibiru can't be played in this deck, because it would level lock you. Just as a quick explanation, if you've never seen the deck before, you got to kind of talk to the people that know the deck and the people that don't know the deck. And if you've never played the deck, but you're also in fear of this deck whenever you play against it, I also think this would be a good profile for you as well. As far as the hand traps, and it really sucks I didn't get to play in the extravaganza just because I had a health concern come up out of nowhere literally a few days before, and I just sat the weekend out. Shout out to Ariel, though. He did really well with Guru and got his invite. But it's also another meta call deck. And again, guys, this is a meta call deck, meaning this is a deck that has an amazing chance against the meta, in my opinion, for the simple fact that it can just completely wipe your opponent out with cards like this, and with the deck itself and some of the power cards inside of the deck. It's just really strong. Gamma is one of the best hand traps, and it really goes well in this deck because on Monster Gate, on Reasoning, if you're playing it, I'm actually not right now, it's really good to have in the deck because you just go right past it. If you're going to play hand traps in this deck, you have to play the ones that Reasoning and Monster Gate are just going to go right past. It's not going to go past the driver, but you just kind of got to live with it. And Monster Gate and Reasoning really only have 4 targets in the deck of 40. I mean, you just got to kind of take the L that comes with it if you do hit this, because Gamma is just that good. And it's probably the best choice for hand traps right now. as far as this deck is concerned, because you need your power plays to go through, and that's what Gamma does. As far as Lava Golem being the last of the monsters, I'm playing 14 Infernoids, then I'm playing I almost said Infernoid Gamma. What's wrong with me? Psyframe Gear Gamma. It feels like an Infernoid sometimes, and the driver obviously is the monsters. And then Lava Golem to handle what's going on in the meta right now. Basically, this is an option. I feel like this could also be a third layer of darkness and a Mystic Mine. But I chose this for the simple fact that Vanity's Ruler isn't in the game at the moment. You know, on a big scale, it was a little while ago, and that would mean that you couldn't play Infernoids like that. You also couldn't play Infernoids to go second like that for the simple fact that when you were dealing with stuff like VFD and you wouldn't be able to kill them, and you wouldn't be able to, if you couldn't negate with the Gamma, or you couldn't hit the droplets by discarding a trap, which you actually play traps in this deck, you could have modified it a little bit. Lava Golem at the moment handles stuff like Dragon Link. Dragon Link is the best deck. Decks like that are the best deck. And Lava Golem puts in a lot of work, but it's not 100% that this has to be in the deck. However, this with Antra, the one that's the compulse, it's kind of nutty because you can give your opponent a Lava Golem and kick it back to your hand. That's just ignorant. The rest of the deck, the Void Vanishment helps you to search a Void card, but your opponent does get locked into Void cards and only being able to summon Infernoids. Do not get cheated by this deck or playing against somebody inside of this deck where they're playing these and then they try to OTK you with Equimax or something. You can't. You have to summon Infernoids that turn that you use this. So this is a really good, powerful card to see because it gets you to this card, which is one of the best cards in the game. I think it's a top 5 card in the game in any format at all times. And I'm dead serious. This card is like that. It's one of the most powerful cards I've ever seen in the history of this game. Because if it lands, I really can't remember any time of me ever losing a game like that. But, you know, that's just me. That's my experience. This card is like that. Really, really powerful fusion spell. Probably the best fusion spell in the game. Better than Shaddoll Fusion. Because you basically activate it onto the field. And if it resolves and the fusion comes out, all hell breaks loose because you just dumped in a bunch of Infernoids. And you're about to get a lot of pluses. It's really like a +9 in and of itself, which is absolutely insane. Power level over 9,000, bottom line. Some of the rest of the cards, Extravagance always baits out negations because people hate for you to just get free cards. And the more that this deck has free cards to work with, the more your opponent is screwed. So a lot of times this actually gets negated in games 2 and 3 because people know what you're playing and they want you to have to rely on the cards in your hand, and that still is too good because most of the time you're going second. Extravagance is nuts. Forgive the mismatch rarity. You have to OTK in this deck, so you have to play this one. If you're playing the Go First version, then yes, you could play Prosperity, and it would be a lot easier for you to pick out stuff, and you could change around your extra deck a lot and have some more versatility. But for this version, you kind of don't have the versatility. You just got to kill. So Extravagance is perfect. Terraforming and double layer. Again, this is where I feel like if you wanted to adjust the lava golems, you could put in a 3rd layer and then a Mystic Mine because, you know, Mystic Mine is really, really cheesy once you've... This deck can bait out a lot of negations, and if you just got a Mystic Mine sitting as one of the last cards in your hand, it's really, really powerful because Infernoids can leave on and off the field very easily and then come back and make a huge impact on the game state. So if you see some space somewhere in here, and I'll probably put it somewhere in at the end where I kind of have some options, you guys hopefully can get where I'm coming from when I say this is kind of my lineup right now, but it's easy to change, definitely. The layers with the Monster Gate is the Exodia version part of this deck. If you activate layer and it sticks to the board, then your opponent is screwed if they had any kind of negation because, you know, like let's say you're playing against Dragon Link. If they let the layer stick onto the board, then the Borreload Savage or whatever the hell is on the field won't matter anymore because you just tributed it completely off the board. And then you just want to get Infernoids in the grave as fast as possible, and we don't have grass is greener, so this is the best way to do that besides the fusion spell. So that's why you have that. And then obviously rounding out the 3 ofs really. Triple Forbidden Droplet just because it's so free to discard the Infernoids that they really don't matter. And then the last 2 cards in the deck, Void Feast. If you wanted to play the Go First version, I'll probably do one in about like a couple weeks if you actually want one. Just like the video or something, I'll get it out there anyway. But 1 for 1, because you can also bait your opponent very hard with this card. People are terrified of this card. at all times. It's limited to one for a reason. Although this card gets overlooked a lot, this card is still very, very powerful, and your opponent has to deal with it. So that's pretty much all of the main deck. The extra deck, and I'm going to go through this really, really fast because I want to talk some more at the end of the video. You play 3 Tierra, and then you dump stuff off of Tierra, whether it be Infernoids inside of your deck or outside of your deck in your extra deck. You can dump more Tierras to have more Infernoid names. That's a clever trick. A lot of people might not have ever known that. I don't know how you wouldn't. Most of the time you want to sit Intis, but if you don't, then you just don't, and you send this. Sometimes you banish these, so you have to send the Infernoids. Then you got cards like Equimax that explain the OTK. I'll explain it later towards the end of the video. And then some of the other stuff in the extra deck. Beat Cop, one of my personal favorites. This could be Lambda as well. I'm gonna show some options again at the end of the video. Hita, I feel like she's kind of mandatory just because if your opponent ashes you at any point, it's how you jump straight into the Equimax. That's the trick. And also, this should probably Halka Fibrax. I try out Nightmare Phoenix. I'm trying it out right now, but Halka Fibrax is probably correct. Just because usually playing Infernoid, you're going to fight through your opponent's back row pretty easily anyway. However, back row decks like Guru is an awful matchup for this deck. Any deck that touches their extra deck is an amazing, easy matchup for you because you're just going to storm your opponent completely. Beat Cop tributes cards to protect stuff, so you can tribute your opponent's stuff to protect your own stuff. I think that's kind of cool. It's always something that I like, but because you're playing Gamma, this should probably be Lambda. That's probably the optimal choice. But Beat Cop is also really, really interesting to me. And then rounding out some of the last cards, Gravity Controller, Omega, and Chaos Ruler. Chaos Ruler is insane in every deck that it's in. That's really self-explanatory. Milling 5 in this deck is nuts. And if you land a Gamma, you're going to land this probably, or you can rip a card from your opponent. You can also send this off of Tierra to be able to shuffle something back in your opponent's graveyard. Maybe you're playing against Drytron and you need to put back in Alpha. That actually happens. And then this card helps you to get the Tierra off the board because you're level locked under Tierra if you didn't kind of get where I'm coming from with that. And then the side deck is really, really just a bunch of cards that are going to pertain to what you play a lot. And I play a lot of back row decks. So stuff like this, let's just touch on this part. Stuff like this is like, I really can't stand back row decks. And so I try to like completely decapitate them and take them out. This could probably be something else just because if you monster gate into this, you will have to stop on this. If you monster gate into a Pankratops, that's not that bad. But just so you're aware, you will have to stop on this. Although Danko in this deck is absolutely nuts if it sticks to the board because you're usually going to wipe your opponent's entire game state out pretty much because nobody's just going to flip stuff on Infernoid. They kind of want you to walk into stuff, or it's just going to bait a negation and you can go about your business from there. And because of the trap trick that's right here, this could probably be a third trap trick, but I feel like sometimes when you know you're going first, Call by Grave is such a powerful card. I hate not playing the card at all. But my trap trick targets are these two because you want to see this as much as possible. And when you go first and you hit your opponent with trap tricks, the ability to search it with the Void card and the card itself and drawing another Void card, that's insane. And this card is a very, very powerful card, just like Torrential Tribute. And just because your board is going to be open a lot, Torrential Tribute is also an insane card. And letting your opponent know that it's going to be there, or chaining this to this, and when they're gonna tour guide, like when you can see a summon coming, Torrential Tribute is a great card. Now let's get into some of the talking points I want to talk about. Yeah, guys, so on this last little bit, I'm just talking on some of the changes that I was talking about inside of the video on the actual profile. I taped it like a couple hours ago, but now I wanted to like go through the actual changes. So bear with me for a split second. I really feel like a lot of the deck is really solid as far as going second, but as I said with the lava golems, this is just like the fast version. If you just want to like cut to the end of the video and this is the deck profile that you wanted to see in a fast version, I really feel like that may be a new lane for people, because I know people, I don't like sitting there for 10 minutes at a time watching people go through yapping and running their mouth for that long. But these are the changes that I was pretty much talking about as far as pardon me, it's being kind of weird, but yeah, pretty much all the changes I was saying. And the Halka Fibrax obviously down here, or the Lambda. So Halk, we'll do that first. Halka Fibrax, and then this Lambda is where the beat cop was. And yeah, also I would also say, if you really don't like Danko, a lot of people don't like Danko anymore, and I completely understand why. Just because it's not quite what it was when it first was dropped, but it's still a very, very powerful card. I would recommend highly a card like Lightning Storm. That way, if you just don't want to deal with potentially monster getting into a Danko, you have this. And that's pretty much, if I were optimizing a list to go second, this is exactly how I would play it, honestly. The Lava Golems would be something that I would wrestle with, but I just have to kind of think about what I'm playing against. And that's pretty much it. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. I am out. I'll see you next time. We got Paleo coming. We got Prank Kids coming. And then we got a Meta of Tomorrow video coming, because there is a deck that is on the horizon that is going to shake some shit up. See you guys next time. I'm out. YG baby!